600 American businesses closed yesterday. 600 more will close today, and the same again tomorrow. Last year, 218,861 of them shut their doors in their first 12 months. That is a small business closing in the United States every minute and a half. The owners blame the economy. The data tells a different story. This is no book of a COO. If you want operational thinking instead of motivation, you are in the right place. Today, the actual numbers behind the small business death wave and the three things every survivor has in common. Let me lay out the scale because most operators do not realize how brutal this is. There are 36.2 million small businesses in the United States. Roughly 1 in 5 new ones will not survive their first 12 months. By year 5, almost half will be gone. By year 10, 2 out of every 3. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tracked 218,861 closures in a single 12-month window ending March 2025, roughly 600 a day. And in the first quarter of 2026 alone, small business bankruptcy filings under Subchapter 5 jumped 67% over the same quarter the year before. This wave is not just hitting startups. It is hitting established operators with 5, 10, 15 years on the books. So what are operators saying killed their businesses? Pull up any closure article from 2025 and you get the same list. Tariffs, inflation, interest rates, AI, hiring, the economy. The Federal Reserve agrees, partly. The 2025 Small Business Credit Survey found that 75% of firms cited rising costs as their biggest financial challenge. Reaching customers came second. Hiring qualified staff was third. Real problems, not made up. But here's what the same survey also showed. Revenue and employment growth held steady. The businesses that closed were not, on average, in worse macro conditions than the businesses that survived. Same economy, same rents, same suppliers, same talent pool, same conditions, different outcomes. If 600 businesses a day are closing while their direct competitors stay open, the difference is not the weather. It is something the survivors built on purpose and the closing operators did not see. When researchers actually study the closures, 3 patterns show up over and over. Drop a comment. Which one of those macro reasons did you blame the last time things got hard? I will read every reply. The first pattern is the one most operators have heard, but almost none of them have actually fixed. A U.S. bank study cited by SCORE found that 82% of small business failures involve cash flow problems. PIMITS found that 60% of small businesses are actively struggling with cash flow management right now. Most operators read those numbers and assume the problem is revenue, so the obvious fix is to sell harder. But cash flow is not the same as revenue. Plenty of businesses with growing revenue close every quarter because the money was not where it was supposed to be when it needed to be there. Here's what the survivors do differently. They do not look at last month's bank statement. They look at the next 90 days. A 13-week cash flow forecast is the single most underrated tool in small business operations. Week by week, it tells you what is coming in, what is going out, and what is left. It surfaces a payroll problem in week 8 while you are still in week 1. The operators who close had bank balances. The operators who survive have forecasts. The difference is watching the past versus managing the future. The second pattern is the one most operators do not even know is happening to them. The U.S. Chamber reports that nearly 35% of failures come from insufficient market demand. CB Insights, studying startup postmortems, puts that number at 42%. No market need. Read that carefully. The owner did not lose customers because a competitor stole them. The owner lost customers because the market stopped needing what they were selling, the same way it had been sold, to the same people, for the same reason. Markets shift. The pandemic shifted them in 2020. AI shifted them in 2023. Tariffs are shifting them right now. The owners who close almost never noticed the drift. They were heads down, doing the same thing that worked last year, until the lead flow slowed. Then the pipeline dried up. Then the bank account started drawing down. The survivors run a quarterly demand check, not a survey, not a focus group, a quarterly conversation with 3 to 5 recent customers. One question: what almost stopped you from buying this? That answer tells you where the market is moving, not where it has been. Drop a comment. When was the last time you actually talked to a customer about why they almost did not buy? The third pattern is the one operators almost never name correctly. CB Insights found that 23% of failures involve the wrong team. Industry research adds another 19% for poor management. More than 4 out of 10 failures attributed to people problems. But look inside those businesses, and the team problem is almost never a hiring problem. It is an architecture problem. The team is being asked to execute a system that only exists in the owner's head. The training is verbal and inconsistent. The decision rights are unclear. The processes change depending on which day it is. The team looks incompetent because the system they are operating in was never written down. When that business closes, the owner usually says, "I could not find good people. Nobody wants to work anymore." What the owner does not have the language for is this: I built a business that required me to be the operating system, and I burned out before the operating system did. The survivors document one process per week, not the whole company at once. One, the one their team asks them about most. 48 processes a year. 2 years in, the business runs on paper instead of personality. So if you are listening and thinking, all right, 3 patterns, what do I do this week? 3 moves, in order. Move 1, build a 13-week cash flow forecast. 1 tab, weeks 1 through 13 across the top. Cash in, cash out, ending balance down the side. Even if the numbers are rough the first time, it changes how you make every operational decision for the next quarter. Move 2. Pick 3 customers from the last 90 days. Call them, email them, voice note them. Ask one question: what almost stopped you from buying this? Then shut up and listen. The pattern across 3 answers tells you where your offer is drifting. Move 3. Write down one process this week, the one your team asks about most. The one you have answered the same question about 14 times this year. 1 page, bullets are fine, nothing fancy. Then send it to whoever asks next instead of answering again. 3 moves, 6 hours of work total, to start running operationally instead of reactively. The 600 businesses that closed yesterday did not close because the economy was bad. They closed because the operators were watching the past, missing the drift, and carrying the company in their head. Here is your one action this week. Pick the move you have been avoiding the longest. That is the one to start with. If you want to go deeper on the second pattern, the demand drift, listen to our podcast titled Stop Running a 2019 Business in a 2026 Market. That episode walks through exactly how to read the market signal before it costs you the business. If this episode gave you something useful, share it with one operator in your world who needs to hear it. Wherever you are, that is exactly where you are supposed to be. But that does not mean you have to stay there. Until next time.